Hello, this is Goffert from XLDNA. Today we're looking at how to add a ribbon extension to your XLDNA add-in. The basic ribbon extension will just have a button on that runs some code to manipulate the sheet. Let's see how it goes. Okay, this tutorial is up on GitHub under the XLDNA tutorials repository. And this one is called Ribbon Basics. So the Ribbon Basics project has the whole write-up of the steps I'm going to go through and a little sample project that goes along with that. Our starting point is going to be a basic add-in in Visual Basic in this case, but all the steps to make the ribbon would be the same for a C# add-in. The basic add-in just has a single user-defined function called hello DNA. I've downloaded the project from GitHub and I'm just going to rebuild it and then see if we run, check that the add-in loads and the user-defined function works in Excel. So I'm starting Excel. Let's see if everything is fine. I'm enabling the add-in. Let's make a new sheet and let's say if equals hello DNA, the function is there. Let's say hello YouTube. Yes, it all works. Okay, so we have a basic add-in with a single user-defined function, but what we'd like to do now is to add a ribbon extension onto our Excel so that we can do something like run a macro that would write some stuff to a sheet or maybe do some formatting or something like that. Okay, so I'm going to close this again and I'm going to then not save it. And okay, so to prepare our environment for making these ribbon extensions, we need to take two steps. The first is, both of them are optional, but the first is to install the XML schemas that will make it easier when editing our ribbon markup. The way to do that, one way to do that is to add an extension to Visual Studio called the XLDNA XML Schemas. So if I go to Visual Studio Marketplace and then I search for XLDNA XML, I'm hoping it will find the XLDNA XML Schemas. That's exactly the one we want. And I'm just going to download and then install that little extension. It tells us we have to close Visual Studio and restart it, then it will be installed. This step requires admin permissions to write those extra schema files. There is another approach to adding the schemas which doesn't need admin permissions. That's also documented in the write-up. But this is kind of nice because once it's done, you don't have to do it again. Okay, so it's busy installing those schemas now, and that is the first step of preparing. The second step of preparing will be to configure Excel to tell us if there are problems with our user interface extensions. So I'm going to just wait for this to finish. I don't think it will take long. And then we're going to open Excel and change one setting in Excel about that. Okay, so I'm seeing it takes a little while. Okay, now it is done. It's added those schemas now to Visual Studio. Okay, the change in Excel that we want to make is if we go to Excel and we go to Options and then Advanced and then scroll down to the General section and there's an option called Show Add-in User Interface Errors. It's very good to switch that on because it will show you any problems there are while you're developing your user interface extension, your ribbon extension. So if you switch that on, Excel will tell you. If you don't have that on, it will sometimes fail to load your ribbon and you won't know why because it's not telling you that there's any error. Okay, so that's the part we want to change in Excel, and now we've done the preparations. Let me open my project again. And now I'm going to add the ribbon extension. So there are several places to put the XML markup that describes how the ribbon works in Excel. The easiest, I think, for today is going to be to add it into the .dna file that an Excel DNA add-in project has. So tells me there's an update available. I'm not going to bother now. Okay, so this is the .dna file that was created when we installed the Excel DNA.add-in package from NuGet. And the .dna file tells Excel DNA which libraries to load and that kind of thing. And it also allows us to put the ribbon XML information in here. And that's what I'm going to do today. So I'm going to remove this comment, and in here, because we've now installed those XML schemas, we actually have IntelliSense inside the DNA file that tells us what we can add. And what we're actually trying to add now is a custom UI portion. And I'm going to, in the custom UI section, I'm going to go back to my tutorial, and I'm going to just copy this inside part, the custom UI part for a basic ribbon. Okay, so let's see what is important here. One thing is there is a custom UI tag with a capital C and then a custom UI with a little c. And that is just because of how I made it with Excel DNA to have different extensions, and this inner part is exactly the markup that Office defines and requires. And so other tools like Visual Studio Tools for Office can also export this kind of markup. And other tutorials you will see about ribbons in Excel will also describe exactly the same markup. So this inside part, inside the custom UI tags, is exactly the same for whatever mechanism you use to make your ribbon extension. Okay, inside here also it has the IntelliSense. It is because the XML namespace here is defined, and we have those schemas installed. Okay, so I'm going to make a custom UI extension. It will be a ribbon extension, and under the tabs portion there will be one new tab called My Tab. And on that tab there will be a group, and it will be labeled My Group. And in the group there will be a button, and the button will say hello. And this on action portion, that is telling the ribbon what to do when the button is pressed, and we are going to make a class that will implement this on say hello pressed method. Okay, so that's a very basic ribbon. These IDs, they just have to be unique within your ribbon, but they have to be there, and the rest I think is quite straightforward at this level. Okay, so that was step one. We've added the XML into our .dna file. Now I'm going to add a class into the project. So I'm just going to say add class, and I will call it maybe ribbon.vb. And this class is going to be the one that handles these callbacks. Okay, so for it to be a callback class, we have some prerequisites. the ribbon class must inherit from an Excel DNA base class called Excel ribbon. So if I say Excel ribbon, I think it can actually help me to fill in the parts that are needed. This imports directive tells us in which namespace Excel ribbon lives. Okay, so once we have a public class that inherits from Excel ribbon, Excel DNA will know that this is the class that must be hooked up with the XML for the ribbon extension. There is one other requirement, and under Visual Basic add-ins, it's not always needed, but it's good to add it explicitly. And that is to make this class marked as COM-visible. COM-visible. That makes sure that Excel can actually load our class. And for the COM-visible, we need to add another import, which is this interop services import. Okay, then the final part we need is to actually add a method that will handle that button press. And so that method will be a public sub on, what did I call it? I can go back to my DNA file. On say hello pressed, that's what I want. On say hello pressed. And its signature is it takes an ribbon control. Which is the, it takes a control which is an ribbon control, and that is the button that is pressed, and we can get information about that button, like its label or its ID inside this method. And what will we do when the button is pressed? Let us say hello from .NET. Okay, if I've done everything right, then this will now load a ribbon and show it. The same code is available just to copy and paste it from that tutorial page as well. Okay, let's press start and hope that our ribbon is there, our button is there, and that when we press our button, it will call this method. Okay, I see it's got my tab up there, so it's added the tab. Under my tab, it's got my group, and there is the say hello button. And when I press it, it says hello from .NET. Okay, that's great. And we can even put a breakpoint here. I'm pressing F9, that adds a breakpoint. And then when I press say hello, it will break on the breakpoint, and we can see that there is the control as it came in. Yeah. It will have some properties which we can examine further. Okay. So we've successfully created the ribbon, created the callback. That's a good first step. The next step I want to take is to say, okay, so actually what we probably want to do when we press the button is interact with the Excel workbook somehow. So the way we're going to do that is through the normal COM object model that if you are familiar with VBA, then you already know that well. And so we want to do something here like write to the sheet. To get access to the COM object model, we install another package from NuGet called exceldna.interop. It adds all the references we need. So I'm going to go to my project, and I will go to manage NuGet packages. I could also go to tools, NuGet package manager, manage NuGet packages, and I will come to the same screen. So I already have the XLDNA add-in package installed, but now I want to add a new one. So I go to browse, and I will now look for exceldna.interop. So this package provides the primary interop assemblies, the COM definitions for Excel. It is the version from Excel 2010, which means it can be used for any version of Excel since 2010. So from 2010 onwards. But it doesn't define the new properties and methods that were added later than that to Excel. But it means that your project and your add-in will be compatible with versions back to Excel 2010. Okay, I'm going to install this package. I'm saying okay. And what this package will now do is, under references in my project, it will have added this Microsoft Office interop.excel, VBA.interop, and Office references. So those 3 references are now available for us to use in our code. So if I go back to my ribbon class, I can now change what happens when say hello is pressed. What I want to do is I just want to write onto the sheet my message. So first I have to get hold of the Excel application root object. So let me say I'm going to do imports Microsoft.office.interop.excel. That makes the Excel object model available to me. And I'm also going to do another one, which is imports Excel DNA.integration. And that will allow me to get hold of that application object. So let me do dim app as application, which we can see if I hover over that. This is the Excel application. There are different classes called application, but I'm interested in the Excel one. I can add a range. That's where we're going to write our stuff to. Okay, so let us get hold of our application, and this is the way to do it inside an Excel DNA add-in. So we get the application object from a call to Excel DNA util.application. That's why I needed this line imports Excel DNA.integration, is so that I can call that class. Okay, now suppose the range is just whatever the active sheet is, A1. There's a range, and now I can do range.value equals, and maybe I will just say hello from .NET. Okay, so this code should work well. If there's a sheet open, it will just refer to cell A1 and write into it. Let's see if this works. So I'm pressing start again, which will compile it and then load in Excel, enable the add-in. Okay, I'm going to just open a new sheet or a new workbook. And now I can go to my tab, say hello, okay, and it has written into that cell hello from .NET. Okay, great. So that shows we can write and access the Excel object model from inside our ribbon handler. That's pretty cool. The next thing I want to show is just what happens if something goes wrong. So, for example, if in our ribbon there is a typing error, and so maybe there's something that is wrong, what will happen? Well, for starters, we can see that the errors are at least shown inside the Visual Studio. But if I save this and load it, I'm expecting some kind of error. Let us see what happens. Okay, so if there's an error like this in the XML document, we get an error from Excel DNA that says, okay, there's an error in the XML document, something isn't right with the XML. Okay, so that is the first kind of error. It can be that the XML is well formed, but maybe some part is missing, like this ID part, which I think is required. So suppose that part is missing. let us see what happens in that case. We're loading it again in Excel. And this time we see the error from Excel. It's a custom UI runtime error. It says there's an error in one of these lines. And it says missing ID. Either ID or ID MSO must be specified. Okay, so that's another kind of error where Excel is showing us that user interface error because we've added that setting. Okay, I'm going to undo my bad changes, and then finally I'm going to make I'm going to run this. But now suppose there is no workbook open, and we try to talk to this range. What kind of error would we get there? Okay, so I'm going to run it again. Okay, so my ribbon is loaded, but there's no workbook open. So what kind of error will I get in this case? Because I'm running under the debugger, it's stopping under the debugger and it's telling me there's some horrible exception. It is basically saying that there's an error while talking to the object model. If I press continue, that error will be sent through to Excel, and Excel will say, okay, there was an exception while calling this function. The exception message with this details again is shown. So because we've told Excel to show us add-in interface errors, it's giving us a message in this case. And now, just to make sure everything is still working, if I show my sheet and press say hello, it's still able to work correctly. Okay. The last ribbon related thing I want to show you is how to add a little image to your ribbon if you want to make it a bit more interesting. And so for that I actually have an image in this project already, but I'm going to press show all files, and that's going to show me this magic wand image. So let me add this in the project so it is included. And I'm going to also set a setting here on the properties of this image that will make sure it is copied to the output directory. So I'm going to say copy if newer, and that way it will be copied to the output directory. Okay, so I can undo the show all files again. So in my project now I have an images folder, and it doesn't have to be images, it can be anywhere, but it's a good way to arrange it. And then I have this little magic wand PNG file. I think other formats are also supported, but that PNG is quite a standard one. It also allows transparency, so that's quite nice. Okay, so I want that image to be associated with our button. So I go back to the DNA file, and I have to do two things for the images. I have to add an extra property up here in the custom UI tag called load image, and I'm going to use load image, which is a special built-in method that's part of the Excel ribbon base class that Excel DNA provides. And so that's where it is. You can override it and manage your images differently, but that is a kind of a convenient built-in mechanism. Okay, so that's the one attribute we're adding, and then I'm adding another one in the button called image, and I'm going to give it a name. I'll just call it magic wand. Okay. And then on my DNA file, I'm also going to define this image so that it will be found through that key, and it will be packed into my packed XLL file. And so that I'm going to do here, magic wand. Path is the path relative to our output directory, which is going to be images magic wand.png, and I'm going to say pack equals true. That just ensures it will be part of the packed XLL. Okay. So now we've added an image to our button, And I think it will now show up in the ribbon if we run it. Let's have a look. Okay, so if I go to my tab, it's got the magic one there. And again, if I make a new workbook and press say hello, it's saying hello and it's got everything there. Okay, so that worked well. That's what I wanted to show for now. If you want to go further with the ribbon, you can see that understanding this markup, the different tags and the different attributes here, that's important. And you can see that for a button, for example, there are descriptions, but there are also these get callback functions, get label and get screen tip and so on. And those get functions allow you to dynamically change the label or to change other attributes of that part of the ribbon. And so for each of these, there is a callback method that can be defined inside your class that backs the ribbon. So you can see that understanding the different tags and the different attributes and the different callback signatures, not this one, callback signatures is important. So in this case, on say hello pressed is a sub and it takes a control as its input. That's important for this to work. And so the information on the ribbon XML markup and on the signatures can be found in two documents or 2 or 3 documents on Microsoft's site. And so the important ones, I think, that I've listed here in the ribbon XML and callback documentation. The one is controls and callback reference. I think that is the one important one, and the other one is the frequently asked questions, including C# and VB.NET callback signatures. And so that's got the signatures for these callbacks. And so if we go and look at the this part 2 overview, it has a list of all the different tags and what you can put inside the tag. There's the load image that we did. There's ribbon, tab, and it says, okay, what are the attributes on tab? They're all different attributes, and these are available. And so these are the lists of the attributes. And then the other link is part 3 of the same set, and it shows what the signatures are for these different callbacks. And so I'm going to scroll down a little bit until I start seeing something like checkbox on action. So for Visual Basic, that's VB.NET, that will be the signature for the on action handler of a checkbox. It'll take a control and whether it's pressed or not, and so on. Okay, so what is important is that there is documentation from the Microsoft side for understanding what happens inside there, and then XLDNA does the hookup between the XML that is defined in the DNA file and the backing class that inherits from XL ribbon, the base class. Okay, so those are the basics of adding a ribbon to your XLDNA add-in. There's a lot more to say and do in this direction, but I think this is a good starting point for making a ribbon that can execute some object model code in your add-in. That's my story for now. Goodbye.